Good evening, I'm Lisa Broom with the CBC Evening News. Despite turbulent economic times, it appears that Prime Minister Fendel Stewart is retaining a positive outlook. Mr. Stewart assures that Barbados's gross domestic product per capita is higher than that of China's, and negative reviews of the state of our economy do not mean that all is lost.
We seem now to be working ourselves back into a frame of mind where once again we want to sit exams for people outside of Barbados and wait on them to grade us. And if they tell us that we have passed, we're supposed to feel good that we have passed. And when they say that we have failed, we're supposed to hold our heads down in shame and think that we are failures.
The PM made the comment at a ceremony heralding the official donation of over $10 million in technological equipment and furniture by the People's Republic of China to Barbados's schools. Thousands of desktop and laptop computers and tablets will be distributed to public and registered private schools, as well as some tertiary and other educational institutions. Mr. Stewart says China's willingness to continually partner with Barbados is a good sign.
We have a project here in Barbados that has been working quite well. That project receives validation and support from countries like the People's Republic of China. And I think that wherever we can find good friends with whom we can work in a decent and collaborative relationship, we should let slip no opportunity to build and to consolidate those friendships.
Amid the criticism and threats of a lawsuit, the body representing key players in the tourism sector has given its blessings to the Hyatt project. It came during the quarterly meeting of the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association at the Hilton Hotel, as we hear from our Kishmar Singist.
CEO of the BHTA, Rudy Grant, looks forward to the establishment of the Hyatt Hotel. It is to be built on the site of the old Harbour Police Station and Detco Motors on Bay Street in Bridgetown. Mr. Grant says the expectation is that the Hyatt will contribute in a positive way.
In terms of the overall marketing efforts for Barbados as a tourism destination, it will provide additional rooms to facilitate the increasing number of visitors that we have. There has been a significant increase in airlift coming into Barbados, particularly out of the United States. And therefore, as a tourism association, we look forward to the operation of Hyatt and to welcome them as a partner and a member of the BHTA.
Looking forward to the remainder of 2017, Mr. Grant says more rooms will be added as several properties are slated to undergo renovation.
But we have South Gap, Cobbler's Cove, 16 suites to be completed, Fairmont Royal Pavilion, refurbishment of 72 rooms. We have Divi South Winds during the spring and summer, upgrading rooms at a cost of approximately $3 million US. We have Sugarcane Club during the months of June through to August with upgrades, building 2 additional suites, extending the La Salsa restaurant. We have Seabreeze with a major renovation expansion project.
The BHTA boss says Barbados as a destination is competing with others and must remain competitive. He wants government to move with haste in approving the granting of exemption of duties and taxes on the remainder of items identified.
To date, alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages, along with proteins, have been approved for these exemptions. This has certainly been beneficial for our members, but it is fundamentally important that the other items identified to be approved swiftly. The inability to add 49 items, which were submitted in November 2016, inhibits the further competitiveness of our hotels.
The BHTA on this International Women's Day also recognized the recent accomplishment of Calypsonian Crystal Cummins Beckles. Well done. Kishmar Singist, CBC News.
Meantime, as Barbadians embrace online accommodation agencies such as Airbnb and open their homes and properties, the association is insisting the brand Barbados must be protected. Mr. Grant says it's vital all accommodation types adhere to quality standards instituted by the Barbados Tourism Product Authority.
Failing to implement such a measure could impact negatively on brand Barbados and hurt our tourism industry. All of us are aware of the instantaneous utilization of social media to convey visitor experiences. Every effort needs to be made to ensure that only positive messages are circulated.
Mr. Grant believes such online accommodation agencies must be regulated.
The BHTA has been given the opportunity to submit comments on proposed regulations on unregistered accommodation. The development and implementation of these regulations is urgently needed to safeguard our accommodation sector. The issue of taxation is a matter which is also being given consideration by the BTPA as it relates to unregistered accommodation. The objective of the BHTA Secretariat is to work closely with our tourism partners in advocating for a level playing field in the accommodation sector.
Women's contribution to the economy through the informal sector has been downplayed. That's the view of Labour Minister, Senator Dr. Esther Bayer-Suku. She says women who perform services such as needlework or hair braiding in the community also deserve appreciation.
Some don't want formal employment. Some have to balance their caregiving roles as well with the formal employment. So they end up having either to supplement their income through the services that they provide in the community, or they actually opt to do that because that is the way that they can still be there for the children and help with the homework. But they tend to fall out of the loop when we start to measure our economy and start to measure the GDP and who contributes where.
The minister was speaking at a panel discussion on women propelling through business. Noting that women make up 52% of the population, she called for a study into why they continue to represent a smaller portion of the workforce. The results from that study will be used to guide policymakers.
Why is the female participation lower than the male participation? Where we have to do the research. I think we can't look to make policy and legislation until we've actually done the research. And so, again, BCSI and other agencies that would do that research, policymakers need the research. It's one thing to sit here and hear anecdotes of why this happens, but until we get the research, we can't actually put proper policies in place.
In the face of increasing economic concerns, policymakers are being encouraged to protect people, especially women, operating at the lowest levels of society. This is the view of a top union official who made the comments during a march to celebrate International Women's Day and to demand that even more attention be given to women's rights. Kareem Smith has that story.
Dozens of women gathered at the Barbados Workers Union this morning to bring attention to a number of issues facing them in Barbados. Speaking at the event was coordinator of the Gender Equality Committee of the Barbados Workers Union, Wilma Clement, who says the issues range from violence against women to workplace discrimination and harassment. But she says they're not backing down.
We are going to be bold for change today. So as we step out, we are sending some very strong and clear messages. And we are committing to making things better for our women, because when we make things better for women, we make things better for men and for the whole society.
The women marched from Solidarity House to Queen's Park and then through the streets of Bridgetown. Deputy General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union and President of the Sir Frank Walcott Labour College, Doreen Dean, is assuring Barbadians that their movement is not in an attempt to satisfy sexist motives. Instead, she says they're simply joining with persons across the globe to celebrate the social, economic, cultural and societal achievements of women, while calling for further action to speed up gender equality. In addition, she expressed extreme concern about the effect that measures taken to lift the country out of recession could have on women.
Particularly women who are wage earners and are operating in the lowest levels of society. We have been hearing cries for cuts in the employment sector, and we are very cognizant of the fact, and experience has taught us that austerity measures usually impact most heavily at the wage levels, thus making women, particularly single parents, such as mothers and caregivers, the most vulnerable.
In addition, Ms. Dean is calling for better information about the issues affecting workers in Barbados, claiming that much of the recent public mouthings about absenteeism in the workplace are coming from the uninformed. The World Economic Forum predicts that the gender gap will not close entirely until the end of the year 2186. She believes this is too long to wait and is therefore calling for more bold and targeted action in the fight for women's rights. Kareem Smith, CBC News.
Thank you, Kareem. And joining us live now to look at issues affecting women on this International Women's Day is the acting head of the UN Multi-Country Office for the Caribbean, Tony Broadber. A big mouthful of a title, Ms. Broadber, but welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
I want to pick up where one or two of the things that were mentioned in the package that we listened to before. One of the issues raised was workplace discrimination and harassment. At your level, would your office be looking at things like these on a country-to-country basis?
Yes, our office looks at workplace discrimination legislation and policies, as well as sexual harassment legislation and policies, and supporting countries in ensuring that they meet the international standards. We also work closely with CARICOM and other regional organizations that are doing this work to ensure that they also meet the international standards.
So having looked at the legislation in these areas, what are your thoughts on certainly where Barbados has reached and the rest of the Caribbean as it relates to these two very important issues? Are you satisfied that the work is being put in as much as it could be?
I think there is good legislation in place. However, there needs to be stronger legislation. And the issue is not only to have the legislation, but to ensure that the legislation is implemented.
Right.
When we do the surveys and ask women whether they feel protected from sexual harassment in the workplace, whether they feel protected from losing a job if they get pregnant, which is against the law in Barbados, but the feedback is not always. And until the feedback is, yes, we feel completely protected and we know our rights, because a lot of women don't know their rights as well when they sign certain contracts. But when they say that, then we will know that the legislation and the implementation of the legislation are in sync.
Now, one of the things that we just heard as well in terms of gender equality is that there is no hope to reach gender equality till 2186.
Well, yeah. I don't know that there's no hope, but I think any social justice movement, of which gender equality is one, takes time. Because it's not only the legislation and the policies, but it is our belief system and how we behave. So we have to start changing our behaviors, and that takes time. I don't think it's impossible. I hope it happens before 2186. And I think we have all seen changes. For example, the Life in Leggings movement that started in Barbados, where women started to say, no more. And they took to social media, they shared their stories, and it's led to a lot of very good conversation around the issue. And not just conversation, action-oriented conversation around how we can address the issue.
So that's part of the behavior change, on the road toward behavior change, you think?
I think so. UN Women has also been working with a lot of men through our Gender Advocates program and the Carryman group to ensure that men are part of the process, because today is International Women's Day and we're very happy to have a day. It's about focus, one day. But we also recognize, I shouldn't say but, and we also recognize you need balance. We need men to understand and to be part of the fight towards gender equality, because gender inequality harms both men and women. It's not just a women's issue, it's a human issue.
Let's switch focus a little bit and talk about education and the role that education has played in where we've reached as women. Do you see this translating into leadership roles for women? The fact that we are perhaps now more educated than we have been ever before?
So yes, for sure. Of the percentage of the population in Barbados and the Caribbean that goes to tertiary education, the larger proportion is female. That's still only at most 11% of the population in the Caribbean. When you look at the majority of the population, not everybody is going to university. Those that go to university, though, are still not making the same in terms of equal pay for equal work as men. So perhaps they're staying in university longer because they recognize they need more accreditation.
Right.
I'm not sure. As the minister said, we have to do more research. But the Caribbean Human Development Report that UNDP published in 2016 demonstrated that in Barbados, men are making 25% more than women are. And they checked for age, experience, all of the things. The only thing that was really an issue was sex and gender. So we do have to look and see whether we're expecting more from women to do the same as men, and how that gap, and in the clip that was shown before, how the gap increases in terms of the difference in pay when you have women in less professional jobs.
How does the Caribbean compare with the rest of the world as it relates to women realizing their potential?
Well, that's a tricky question because how do you measure women realizing their potential? I think in some areas we've done fantastically in terms of women's education. Of course, 70% of the population that does go to tertiary education are women. However, when it comes to violence against women, which prevents women from attaining their potential, we have 3 countries in the Caribbean that are among the 10 that have the highest rates of sexual violence in the world. So we have great gains, and we also have a lot of gaps and challenges that we still have to work towards to achieve.
Still a long way to go.
Still a long way to go.
Well, thank you very much for your work on behalf of women, as well as coming on tonight to talk about the issues.
Thank you, and happy Women's Day.
Same to you.
To you and those behind the camera.
Thank you. That was Tawny Broadbur, the head of the UN Women Multi-Country Office for the Caribbean, talking about issues surrounding women and International Women's Day. Well, coming up, strong debate in the Senate today on the issue of payment of tax on land for sale. We'll bring you that story and more after this break.
Don't let your data experience slow you down. Step up to Digicel, Barbados' fastest 4G network, more than twice as fast as the slow network. Get more with Digicel. Digicel, the fastest 4G network in Barbados. Dial *153# to sign up to Digicel today.
Need affordable motor insurance? Get up to 30% off plus additional discounts for new and used vehicles. Call 436-6200 or log on to beacon.co.tt. Where you need us, when you need us.
Yo, warm to them! Yo, it's your boy Ricky Diesel. Boom, we have the girls in like a pizzle, shizzle. Friday, March 31st, give me soca, bacchanal on the beach, it's gonna be crazy. Boom, and I'm gonna be there. Freaky girl, that we love. Y'all bend up, you ting on fire. Boom, boom, you ting on fire. Y'all bend on, you ting on fire. Freaky girls, give me soca, bacchanal on the beach, I'm gonna be there. Crazy.
98.1 The One is a proud sponsor of Guinea Soca.
We're gonna be stress-free, stress-free.
The Barbados Revenue Authority Amendment Bill 2017 was the subject of significant disagreement in the Senate today. At issue was whether or not anyone seeking to sell land will have to pay all or just some of the outstanding taxes. Foreign Affairs Minister Senator Maxine McLean and Opposition Senator Wilfred Abrams had differing opinions on the matter. Senator McLean, quoting from the bill, suggested that 10% of the outstanding taxes could be paid and arrangements made to settle the balance.
Where an application is made to the Commissioner for a tax clearance certificate and the Commissioner is satisfied that no taxes are due under the Taxing Act, all taxes, interest and penalties which have accrued under the Taxing Act have been paid, or an amount satisfactory to the Commissioner that is equal to not less than 10% of the taxes, interest and penalties which have accrued under the Taxing Acts have been paid, and an agreement has been executed with the authority for the purpose of making scheduled payments to liquidate the sums owed. That, Madam President, is what I spoke of.
However, Senator Abrams, an attorney at law, said given the nature of land transactions, that approach is not practical. He's contending that all outstanding taxes have to be paid for the sale to be completed.
If I'm trying to sell my land to Senator McLean, her lawyer will properly ask for a tax clearance certificate in relation to the land tax. He's not going to accept that 10% of outstanding land taxes are paid, because if the land is sold with the other 90% of the taxes outstanding, that tax burden is taken off of me, the previous owner, and it is now transferred to Senator McLean, the new owner. The land taxes follow the land.
Well, government is not trying to impose any added burden on taxpayers via the Revenue Authority Amendment Bill 2017. This assertion from Government Senator Verla de Pisa during a debate on moving the second reading of the bill in the Upper House today. Mr. Pisa says many of the conditions in the bill are pre-existing and the amendment is just a better way to implement the collection process.
Already, you have to pay land tax and property transfer tax before you can close a conveyance. Already, you give a guarantee that you did not claim any input tax back from government in relation to your construction. And in respect of all of the other taxes, government already having the right to sell your land is now putting in place something else. Let's make a deal and come to an arrangement where I get some and you get some, and we get the rest over time.
Senator de Pisa added that tax collection is a must for government to continue to make certain privileges and commodities available.
Whilst no one likes to pay taxes, everyone likes, when ill, to go to the polyclinic and the QEH. Whilst no one likes to pay taxes, everyone likes the fact that from the ages of 3 till 18, our children are well accommodated in school. And we sold ourselves short in past generations by suggesting to people that these commodities are free. They are not free. They come at a cost.
If government is able to collect more taxes, there would be greater benefits for the society. This observation from Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Jepter Ince.
If we can get that tax collection rate to what we call a reasonable level, you can reduce personal income taxes significantly. But person must understand that. And that is what we are striving for. When we speak to a country that is socially balanced, do you understand when we say socially balanced? Create that level, create that tax level that all persons in society will benefit.
Senator Ince also supported government's decision to ensure professionals obtain a tax clearance certificate. He stressed Barbadians should not wait until the last minute to pay their taxes.
Sometimes we sit and we wait till the lion is at the door, then to find excuses. Then to find excuses. And we like to use the theory, the poor man, the poor person, when it suits us. if you have your taxes to pay, pay your taxes. Sometimes we know early. All of us at some point of time, we know early, look, I cannot meet this bill this month, or I cannot meet all of it. But we sit and we wait. We sit around and we wait until something happens.
Well, still to come, a number of opposition politicians in Guyana arrested. We'll tell you why.